Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 20. Sanatan Shiksha, the Lord instructs Sanatan Goswami. Starting at text 152. Krishnara Swarupa Vichara Shuna Sanatana Advaya Jnana Tattva Braje Brajendra Nandana. O Sanatan, please hear about the eternal form of Lord Krishna. He is the absolute truth, devoid of duality, but present in Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Maharaj. Now this, I believe, is the beginning of a sequence of verses where Mahaprabhu enters like a mood of bhav, like an intoxicated mood, and he starts like prolifically chanting these verses in glorification of the personal beauty of Krishna. May actually start in the next chapter, chapter 21, perhaps. Yeah, it does, because this is explaining more kind of Krishna Tattva, philosophical Krishna Tattva. He lists all the different Narayan forms and the various formations of how they hold the conch club, disc lotus. And then chapter 21 begins, and he starts singing these verses about the personal beauty of Krishna. We're not going to hear that today. That's going to be in a couple of weeks. And that's very, very nice. Anyway. Sarva Adi Sarva Amse Kishora Shekhara Chidananda Deha Sarva Shraya Sarveshvara. Krishna is the original source of everything and the sum total of everything. He appears as the supreme youth, and his whole body is composed of spiritual bliss. He is the shelter of everything, master of everyone. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. For he is the prime cause of all causes. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Govinda Paranama Sarvaishvarya Purna Yanra Goloka Nityadama. The original supreme personality of Godhead is Krishna. His original name is Govinda. He is full of opulences, and his eternal abode is known as Goloka Vrindavan. Ete chamsa kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. All these incarnations of Godhead are either plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions of the Purusha avatars. But Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead himself. In every age, he protects the world through his different features when the world is disturbed by the enemies of Indra. Jnana Yoga Bhakti Tina Sada Niravashe Brahma Atma Bhagavan Trividha Prakashe. There are three kinds of spiritual processes for understanding the absolute truth. The process of speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and bhakti yoga. According to these three processes, the absolute truth is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Very important sloka. And then the next sloka, of course, is Vadanti tattva vidash tattvam yajjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabdyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan. Brahma anga kanti tanra nirvishesha prakashe suryayena charma chakshe jyotir maya base. The manifestation of the impersonal Brahman effulgence, which is without variety, is the rays of Krishna's bodily effulgence. It is exactly like the sun. When the sun is seen by our ordinary eyes, it simply appears to consist of effulgence. He's translated the word Jyotirmaya Base. Jyoti, like light, simply seems to consist of light, or Prabhupada has translated it as effulgence. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagaranda koti kotishvasesha vasudhari vibhuti binam tad brahma nishkalamanantamashesha bhutam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences in millions and millions of universes. So Brahma Samhita, Prabhupada says in the purport, of course it's from Brahma Samhita. Paramatma yenho tenho krishnera eka amsa atmara atmahaya krishna sarva avatamsa. The Paramatma, the Supersoul feature, is the partial, plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original source of all living entities. It is also Krishna, who is the original source of Paramatma. Krishnam inam avehitvam atmanam akilatmanam jagad ditaya sopyatra dehi vabati mayaya. You should know Krishna as the original soul of all Atmas. For the benefit of the whole universe, he has, out of his causeless mercy, appeared as an ordinary human being. He has done this with the strength of his own internal potency. Atava bahunaitena kim gyatena tavarjuna vistabhyaham idam kritsnam ekam shena stito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a fragment of myself, with a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Bhaktye bhagavanera anubhava purna rupa eka e vigrahe tanra ananta swarupa. Only by devotional activity can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord, which is perfect in all respects. Although his form is one, he can expand his form into unlimited numbers by his supreme will. Swayam rupa tad ekatma rupa aveshanama pratame tina rupe rahina bhagavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead exists in three principal forms: Swayam rupa, tad ekatma rupa, and avesha rupa. Swayam Rupa, Swayam Prakash, Due Rupe Svurti, Swayam Rupe, Eka Krishna, Brajya Gopamurti. The original form of the Lord, Swayam Rupa, is exhibited in two forms, Swayam Rupa and Swayam Prakash. In his original form as Swayam Rupa, Krishna is observed as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. Prabhava Vaibhava Rupe, Dvividha Prakashe, Ekavapu Bahurupa Yaiche Haila Rase. In his original form, Krishna manifests himself in two features, Prabhav and Vaibhav. He expands his one original form into many, as he did during the Rasa Leela dance. Mahishe Vivahe Haila Bahu Vidhamurti Prabhava Prakasha E Shastra Parasiddhi. When the Lord married 16,108 wives at Dwarka, he expanded himself into many forms. These expansions and the expansions at the Rasa dance are called Prabhav Prakash, according to the directions of the revealed scriptures. So we see this Krishna manifesting, expanding, and there's divisions, and then subdivisions, and then sub-subdivisions. Difficult to keep track of them all. Subharyadi prayase kaya vyuhanaya, kaya vyuha haile naradera, Vishmaya Nahaya. The Prabhav Prakash expansions of Lord Krishna are not like the expansions of the sage Sobhari. Had they been so, Narad would not have been astonished to see them. Chitram Bataitad Ekena Vapusha Yugapat Pritak Griheshu Dvyasta Shahasram Striya Eka Udavahat. It is astounding that Lord Sri Krishna, who is one without a second, expanded himself in 16,000 similar forms to marry 16,000 queens in their respective homes. Se vapu se akriti pritak yadiba se bhavavesha beda nama vaibhava prakashe. If one form or feature is differently manifested according to different emotional features, it is called Vaibhav Prakash. Ananta prakashe krishnera nahi murti beda akaravarna astra bede nama vibeda. When the Lord expands himself in innumerable forms, there is no difference in the forms, but due to different features, bodily colors, and weapons, the names are different. Anye cha samskritatmano vidhina bihihit vidhina bihihitenate yajanti tvanmayastvam vai bahu murtyekamurtikam. In different Vedic scriptures, there are prescribed rules and regular principles for worshipping different types of forms. When one is purified by these rules and regulations, he worships you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although manifest in many forms, you are one. Vaibhava Prakasha Krishnera Shri Balaram Varnamatra Beda Sava Krishnera Saman. The first manifestation of the Vaibhav feature of Krishna is Sri Balaramji. Sri Balaram and Krishna have different bodily colors, but otherwise Sri Balaram is equal to Krishna in all respects. Swayam Rupa and Swayam Prakash. So Balaram is the first Vaibhav expansion. Vaibhava Prakasha Yaiche Devaki Tanuja Dvibhuja Swarupa Kabu Kabu Haya Chaturbuja. An example of Vaibhav Prakash is the son of Devaki. He sometimes has 2 hands and sometimes 4 hands. Yai Kali Dvibhuja Nama Vaibhava Prakasha Chaturbhuja Haile Nama Prabhava Prakasha. When the Lord is 2-handed, he is called Vaibhav Prakash. When he is 4-handed, he is called Prabhav Prakash. We'll finish there and read something from Revealed Truth. Jai, you have any comments on this? It's quite technical, this portion of Sanatan Shiksha, where Mahaprabhu is explaining all the various technical identities and the technical, you'd say, differences between the various expansions of Krishna. And you get categories and subcategories. In terms of everyday philosophy, it's not really that applicable. But it's given here nonetheless. The whole idea is to prove that, or is to exhibit how the Swayam Bhagavan form of Krishna in Vrindavan is not only the original form, Swayam Bhagavan, but is also the form which contains and stimulates maximum rasa, maximum ecstasy. And all of the other subsequent expanded forms of Krishna are there to serve that central purpose via their various functions. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Revealed Truth by Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj. Chapter 13, entitled The Transcendental Service World. We must engage all of our senses, our mind and our full energy in Krishna's service. But before we can engage in any devotional activity, we must first surrender to the Lord. We must offer ourselves over to the Lord internally. That is called Atmanivedan, self-surrender. This is the first step in Sharanagati, as well as our first necessity in devotional life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote in one of his commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, Adau arpita paschad kriyata. First surrender, then serve. First offer, then act. When we surrender to Krishna and think that our whole account is being arranged by Krishna, then we can serve him in all circumstances, and whatever we do will be Krishna's service. That is the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Our Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, gave us this conception. Srila Guru Maharaj taught that everything is made of Chaitanya, consciousness, so everything has a transcendental form. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurudev opens our transcendental eyes and gives us transcendental knowledge, transcendental vision, and through that we can see the transcendental form of the environment. It is necessary to leave the illusory environment and live in the transcendental environment. When we are connected with transcendental knowledge by the grace of Gurudev, then gradually the transcendental plane reveals itself to us and we feel everything to be transcendental. Everything around us in this mundane world is material, but everything material is also an expression of the spiritual plane. Movement is a property of consciousness. Both matter and spirit are always in front of us, and we need to avoid material feeling and cultivate spiritual feeling. That is called Paramahamsa Dharma. If a pot has a mixture of milk and water inside it, a hamsa, swan, can drink all the milk within the mixture and leave the water in the pot. Our practicing life is like this. In our environment, everything is good and everything is bad. Everything is spiritual and everything is material. We must be conscious about seeing everything in a spiritual way and avoiding materialistic thinking. General people, conditioned by the illusory environment, ignore the presence of the Jiva soul within everything and do not know that the Jiva soul naturally has a service spirit. The life of liberated souls. In the material world, everything is a passing show. There is no eternity or purity within the material environment. The happiness conditioned souls feel in the material environment is not real happiness. Conditioned souls do not actually know what happiness is. What they consider to be happiness is actually only temporary relief from their material difficulties. Between the births and the deaths of the conditioned souls, so many varieties of suffering come to them. Sometimes conditioned souls become frustrated and want to become liberated from the material atmosphere. Thus, they desire to merge into Brahman the way a raindrop merges into the ocean. Muktir hitvanyata rupam svarupena vyavastitihi. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.6. But real liberation means leaving material life and living a spiritual service life. What does a liberated soul actually do? He engages his every action in the service of the Lord and feels full satisfaction through the Lord's service. Liberation means detachment from material thinking and attachment to the transcendental world through dedicated service to the Lord in a surrendered mood. A liberated soul is directly attracted to Krishna. He understands that his eternal necessity for happiness, love, charm, beauty, and ecstasy will be fulfilled by Krishna's service. All the scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas, the Vedas, and so on, have taught us that we can transform the mundane environment into the transcendental environment through the spirit of service and devotion. Krishna himself said, Sarvadaman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. Bhagavad Gita 1866. Only I can give you everything. Surrender to me and serve me according to my directions, and you will be fully satisfied by your service. Tat kurusva mad arpanam. Before you do anything, first offer it to me. The Lord's service The Lord's service connects everything with the transcendental plane and gives us the realization that everything is the property of Lord Krishna. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everything is the property of Krishna. Everything here, there, and everywhere exists for his satisfaction. Even I myself belong to him and exist to serve him. Nothing exists for me. When we live within that consciousness, then we live in the transcendental service world. We live as a liberated soul in Krishna's transcendental abode. We finish that. Gurudev making the point that by a change of consciousness, then the environment also changes. So, how we perceive the environment, how we label it, what identity we give it, differs according to who we are. So as we change, so does the environment change.
Talking about
yeah. As the Gita says, Atmavan manyate jagat. Atmavan manyate jagat. As our mind is, so we see the world. Manyate jagat. Jagat, the world. Manya, our mind. As our consciousness is, so we see the world. Like a person saturated with a particular emotion, let's say a very lusty person, they see sexuality everywhere, everything they do. To them, everything it's the background fire burning there, and that's due to their state of consciousness. That's what they see. Whereas you say a person, or a person, let's say an angry person, or you could take anger as another example. They see conflict and anger everywhere. Constant fighting. They see threat, feel fear, see threats. Whereas a spiritual person with purified consciousness, the environment takes on a spiritual flavor. And although, and as Gurudev says, it can be completely material or completely spiritual depending on one's state of consciousness. And that, of course, there's flavors, completely material. As soon as someone's very lusty or very angry or very envious or what have you, then that absolute materialism of the environment will be according to the flavor of the person's predominant emotion, but generally a mix. And the same with the spiritual atmosphere. If one has purified consciousness, then the environment will become spiritual, but according to the flavor of the person's service mood. So Hanumanji, for instance, is the personification of Dasyaras. All the objects of the environment are seen in relation to how they can be employed in service to Sri Ramachandra. In Dasyaras service. And when we take Srimati Radharani, right, the Mahabhav, the pinnacle, the prime servitor in Madhura Ras, then the whole environment is seen in relation to how It can please Krishna in the Madhura Ras, including the environment of her own body. Everything. And so on with Shakya Ras and Dasya Ras, etc. So we could say, like for us, practically speaking, it's the same environment, but the reality, what the environment is, actually changes depending on our consciousness. The environment actually takes on spiritual quality, spiritual meaning. Paramahamsa Dharma. Any realizations, Nitai?
No, I'm just listening to what you're saying,
Sarva Dhamman Parityajya. Of course, that by Gurudev reminded us of the Gita sloka Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya. He's saying, Gurudev quotes, who does he quote? Vishwanath Chakravarti, a brief excerpt from one of his commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, Adau apita paschad kriyeta. First surrender, then serve. First offer, then act. Which is, of course, supported by the Gita sloka, Tadvidi Pranipatena. Pranipat means surrender. So first comes surrender. Pariprashna. Sevaya Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashna. Pariprashnena Sevaya. First surrender. That's the first premise. That's the foundation on which other subsequent interactions with the Guru can occur on a basis of surrender. Without that, everything else will not have any fruitful result. Pariprashna, then inquire, and then serve, which is exactly the same here. First surrender, then serve. Pranipat, prashna, questions, sevaya, service. And of course, sarvadhamman parityajya, full surrender. And then we can say service. Jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva. Surrender and then service. That verse is quoted as a subsequent, as a natural corollary. Is that the correct term? Yeah, natural corollary, something that follows on. From sarvadhamman parityajya to jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva. Using one's releasing knowledge and udapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukharitam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shrutikatam tanuvanmanobhir ye prayaso chitajitopyasi taistrilokyam. Using one's mind, body and words, so all of the resources at one's disposal in one's service. That is the natural corollary, the natural subsequent step to sarvadhamman parityajya, surrender. Ramananda Samvad. The themes, the progressive, evolving themes and theme in the Ramananda Samvad. Quoted as sarvadhamman parityajya and then service. Maharaj was like, no, that's not enough. We need service after surrender. That's the point Gurudev is making here. Carries on, actually. Anyway, the next sub-chapter is called Partial Bodily Consciousness. Jai Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, Gurudev Ki Jai. Hari Haraya.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram
Gopal Govinda Ram Srimadhusudana. Giridhari Gopinath Narana Mohana. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chanda. Radha Sanatan Bhat Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhat Das Raghunatha Jai Goshai Kore Charana Bandhana Jai Jai Vignana Savista Puran Jai Goshai Anamuni Tandadasa Tansavara Pararenu Mora Panchagrasa Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivasa Janame Janame Mora Navilasa Jai Goshai Jabe Bhaje Koilo Bhasa Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Koila Prakasha Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavana Shri Guru Vaishnava Pale Jai Amana Guru Vaishnava Para Padma Kori Ashan Hari Nam Sankirtan Kore Bharatam Dasa Hari Nam Sankirtan Kore Bharatam Dasa Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Hari Jaya Gaura Hari Gaura Hari Jaya Gaura Hari Bolo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Saparikara Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridharuju Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Guru Dev Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varg Ki Jai Vishvavaranya Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Samveda Vaishnav Mandala Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Nitai Prabhu Ki Jai